Hi there. So now that we've added our cool Fireball wavetable synth to Bento, we thought it would be a great time to talk about optimizing your Bento projects. Unlike some other products, Bento gives you free reign over how you want to mix and match samplers, synthesizers, and effects in your music. But of course, with this freedom, there's the possibility of overloading your system. Some of this is in the manual, but other bits will be new news. First, let's look at the track screen. This is where you can see how stressed your Bento might be getting by watching the CPU meter and the sample pool. At the lower part of your screen, you can see the CPU meter. The higher the percentage, the more CPU you're using. Getting up near 90% could give you audio glitches or other erratic performance. Also next to it at the bottom, you can see the sample pool. Lower sample numbers can be the culprit here. The lower the number, the fewer the number of samples that can be loaded because you're reaching the maximum number of sample slots. So what causes CPU stress? Synthesis is always stressful on a CPU as it's trying to generate multiple audio voices in real time. This is why we currently limit projects to 1 granular synth and 2 wavetable synths per project. Instrument polyphony settings can also stress your system. This setting dictates how many notes you can play at once, or to double up voices in unison mode so a patch sounds thicker can also stress the system. We put polyphony into your hands, so let's see how we can edit that to optimize your project. Editing polyphony is easy. Just choose the track you want to edit. Here I'll go to the wavetable synth. Then I hit the Inst button to see the dashboard for the wavetable synthesizer. Here we can edit the various parameters for this instrument. Choosing OSC plus config, you'll see a poly mode value at the top. The associated rotary knob above it lets you select a total note count. This limits how many simultaneous notes you can play on the instrument. This also selects whether you're doubling the voices up in unison mode or not. Well, if it's a monophonic part like a bass, you probably don't need 8 voices. And if the sound is fat enough without unison mode, then don't use it. Even with multi-sample sets, this polyphony setting can help. For example, our 10 grand acoustic piano is set to Poly X, which means as many voices as you can play, because it's trying to emulate an acoustic piano where you can use up voices with sustain pedals, for example. But if your piano part is a simple 6-voice chord, you don't need such a high setting. Sample interpolation settings can also affect performance. High-quality sample interpolation can minimize audible artifacts, such as aliasing, while preserving the original waveforms of the emulated instrument. However, when a multi-sample engine is given dozens or hundreds of related samples played at multiple pitches and velocity levels, it requires more CPU processing. So in some situations, you might want to use normal interpolation to free up the CPU to use the resources to support the tracks that want to use the CPU for synthesis or more polyphony. Normal interpolation does not create audible artifacts for most samples. Only use the high Q mode when needed. Also, with the granular synthesizer, grain density and rate can also stress your CPU. Grain density determines how many grains or short regions of your main sample the sample engine plays for each note. So it's a bit like stacking multiple voices for every note. Though the samples are very short and not triggered simultaneously, the sample engine still has to calculate each grain's start and end points and trigger their corresponding grain envelope before playing them. Remember the sample pool? Here's the lowdown on how that works. You can load up to 576 WAV files into a project. After that, there are no more sample slots available to load the data. As you load more and more samples, the 576 sample slots get used up. So the closer that sample pool gets to 0, you might be limited to how many samples you can load. So if you try and load too many samples, you might have notes missing as there are no more sample slots left. So here the answer is just to free up some sample slots and reload the patch. So there's a few tips to help you optimize your Bento projects. Please enjoy your Bento and go make music.